My position as government detective took me to many parts of England, and on this occasion I found myself in the lovely countryside of the west of England. Mr. McCarthy was a tenant on one of the farms owned by a Mr. John Turner. The 18-year-old son of Mr. McCarthy, James, came rushing into the lodge one afternoon to say that he had found his father dead in the wood. Now, the boy's hand and sleeve were covered in blood. A young girl of 14 had been picking flowers in the wood and stated that she had seen or had heard Mr. McCarthy and his son having a violent quarrel, and saw the son raise his hand as if to strike his father. Well, she was so frightened that she ran home and told her mother. The dead man was found with severe injuries to his head, and the son was immediately arrested. Now, despite damning evidence against the boy, a young local lady by the name of Alice Turner believed in his innocence and approached me to work on the case in his favour. Well, I had to admit being puzzled, so referred the problem to Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Well, soon after his arrival in the pretty town of Ross, Miss Turner came in great haste and explained that she and James were hoping to be married. Now, Mr. McCarthy, although approving of the match, warned them to delay such thoughts. But James could never be accused of aggressive action against his father. It would be a pity to disclose the intriguing end to this story. It makes marvellous reading. But with the usual clever deduction by Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I can tell you that James McCarthy was proved innocent in the Boscombe Valley mystery.
We were seated at breakfast one morning, my wife and I, when the maid brought in a telegram. It was from Sherlock Holmes and ran this way. "Have you a couple of days to spare? Have just been wired for from the west of England in connection with the Boscombe Valley tragedy. Shall be glad if you will come with me. Air and scenery perfect. Leave Paddington by the 11:15. "What do you say, dear?" said my wife, looking across at me. "Will you go?" "I really don't know what to say. I have a fairly long list at present." "Oh, Anne Struther will do your work for you. You have been looking a little pale lately. I think that the change would do you good, and you are always so interested in Mr. Sherlock Holmes's cases." "I should be ungrateful if I were not, seeing what I gain through one of them," I answered. "But if I am to go, I must pack at once, for I have only half an hour." We had the carriage to ourselves, save for an immense litter of papers which Holmes had brought with him. Among these he rummaged and read, with intervals of note-taking and meditation, until we were past Reading. Then he suddenly rolled them into a gigantic ball and tossed them up onto the rack.
"Have you heard anything of the case?"
"Not a word. I have not seen a paper for days."
"The London press has not had very full accounts. I've just been looking through all the recent papers in order to master the particulars. It seems, from what I gather, to be one of those simple cases which are so extremely difficult."
"That sounds a little paradoxical."
"But it is profoundly true. Singularity is almost invariably a clue. The more featureless and commonplace a crime is, the more difficult it is to bring it home. In this case, however, they have established a very serious case against the son of the murdered man."
"It is a murder, then?"
"Well, it is conjectured to be so. I shall take nothing for granted until I have had the opportunity of looking personally into it. I will explain the state of things to you as far as I have been able to understand it in a very few words.